Attorney General Ken Paxton fleeing a process server who attempted to serve him with a subpoena in a lawsuit brought by reproductive health groups looking to help women access legal abortions in states outside of Texas.
The notoriously legally embattled Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton allegedly fled his home in a truck to avoid being served with subpoenas. I'm Yasmin Khan with Rebel HQ, and our Texas leaders sure love to flee a disaster, even, apparently, when it's a disaster of their own making. Ken Paxton, who has already won one re-election campaign while making headlines for illegal activity, is set to do so a second time, as polling currently has him ahead of his Democratic challenger, Rochelle Garza. Of course, we all know how fickle polling data can be, but I have to believe that even if this election cycle isn't the one to make some kind of change happen, it's coming soon. The era where grandstanding and hyper-masculinity trump actual human decency and fitness for a job has to be over soon, right? Because how is a man who's the literal target of several legal battles that he's been using his position to evade and prolong, elected to be the highest law enforcement official in the state of Texas, not once, but repeatedly? Are people not paying attention to all that he's dealing with, even though his actions have garnered national attention on several occasions? Do people choose not to believe the charges filed against him? Do people just not care that he's terrible because he's willing to abuse his power to ensure that more Republicans are elected across the state? The highest law enforcement official in the state of Texas has now fled his own home in an effort to avoid being served with subpoenas. When the story first broke, Paxton responded to an article in the Texas Tribune alleging he, quote, fled his home by basically playing the victim as wealthy and privileged Republican leaders often like to do. He tried to paint the scenario as a matter of personal safety, insinuating that he felt threatened by a black car parked in front of his house. The tweet said, quote, this is a ridiculous waste of time and the media should be ashamed of themselves. All across the country, conservatives have faced threats to their safety. Many threats that receive scant coverage or condemnation from the mainstream media.
In response, Ken Paxton tweeted the following. It is clear that the media wants to drum up another controversy involving my work as Attorney General, so they are attacking me for having the audacity to avoid a stranger lingering outside my home and showing concern about the safety and well-being of my family. This coming from a man who has reportedly gone to court to defend a Texas law that allows perfect strangers to sue women on the suspicion that they might have had an abortion.
So he didn't really address the issue directly. He just attempted to conflate his troubles, again, all of which are of his own making, with some bigger problem that apparently plagues conservatives across the country. Of course, threats to anyone's safety aren't good, and while I feel like I shouldn't have to say that, I feel like I have to say that. But having said so, this isn't what Paxton was dealing with, and Paxton allegedly knew it. According to the process server, Ernesto Martin Herrera parked his car in front of the Paxton residence, knocked on the door, and spoke with a woman named Angela, Paxton's wife. Herrera introduced himself and explained the reason for his visit. He said he had to deliver some legal papers to Paxton, and at that point, Herrera was informed that Paxton was currently taking a phone call, and he was instructed by his client to wait in the car. Around an hour later, Herrera saw Paxton leave his garage. Herrera called out to him by name, at which point Paxton ran back into his house. Herrera wrote in a sworn affidavit, as soon as he saw me and heard me call his name out, he turned around and ran back inside the house through the same door in the garage. The word ran was in all caps, bolded, and underlined, emphasis on ran. A few minutes later, Angela exited the property and got into the driver's seat of one of the vehicles in the driveway. She started the car, and then Paxton emerged a second time. This time, Herrera again addressed him by name and told him he had court documents for him. Paxton ignored Herrera, so Herrera told him he'd just place the documents on the ground. He did so in the driveway, and then Paxton and Angela drove off, leaving the documents behind. So he knew who the process server was and what his intention was and why he was at his home. Herrera's account contradicts Paxton's insinuation that he felt threatened by Herrera being parked in front of his home, but I suppose you could make an argument that people aren't always who they say they are, and that some people would be willing to lie in order to gain access to public figures such as Paxton. Herrera was trying to serve Paxton with subpoenas regarding his actions against reproductive rights in the state of Texas, rights that have now been stripped from women like me because of men like Paxton. The lawsuit filed against him comes from reproductive health groups who claim that the law is infringing upon their ability to treat patients and to help their patients access legal abortions in other states. In Texas, healthcare providers can face legal or financial damages for treating or otherwise assisting a woman seeking an abortion for any reason. Texas already has some of the most regressive and oppressive anti-abortion laws in the country. And we have some of the highest maternal mortality rates in the country.
To run from a process server raises a couple questions. One, did he think it was about something else? Did he know it was about this matter? Or did he think he was being approached about something else? Or why did he feel threatened?
In addition to Paxton being named in this particular suit, he's also facing anywhere from 5 to 99 years in prison if found guilty of security fraud, a felony charge from 2015 that he still hasn't gone to trial for. He was also sued by whistleblowers in his own office who accused him of abuses of power. As it stands, a Texas judge has just ruled that Paxton doesn't have to appear at a hearing related to the case because, quote, top executive officials should not be called to testify absent extraordinary circumstances. And this is part of the reason why people like Ken Paxton seem to evade accountability, because there's always a judge that says he doesn't have to be held accountable. And as the Texas Attorney General, who's going to enforce anything against Ken Paxton? On top of that, Texas Republican voters don't seem to be demanding anything better from their representatives. Paxton was in a runoff for the party nomination earlier this year against, of all people, a Bush. Bush's campaign called public attention to Paxton's legal trouble and misdealings, but Republican voters still went with the incumbent. The conflict of interest of having an attorney general that's at the center of several high-profile lawsuits doesn't seem to bother people. Perhaps they think it's all just politics or political games or the angry mob on the left. Or maybe they really don't care that their leaders are terrible because they perceive them to be good at getting things done. Or maybe they really are just terrified of what might happen if a Democrat, especially a brown female Democrat, were to take over the position. Who knows? All right, that is it for me. Please like and subscribe if you got anything out of this content, and be sure to follow me over on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you.